because it. Oh, okay, got it. How do I get rid of this guy? There we go. So it's very important to understand that. So when you send a long RTTY message, guess what? It's full duty cycle, and it's very important to not blow stuff up. I have seen other things where we've fried amplifiers and things like that. So one of the things that's important to understand is the mark and space frequency. So the mark is the starting frequency, and what happens is it diddles back and forth. They call it diddling, don't know why. But of 170 hertz, and it goes up to 2295 hertz. So that's really kind of important thing to understand. And the problem with this continuous carry signal like this is it's subject to noise bursts, QSB, Doppler effects, anything in the atmosphere that causes you to lose a signal. If it loses it, it drops carriers, it drops characters and all kinds of things, and sometimes you just get garbage. So there are ways around this. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but it's really important to understand how that works. Unfortunately, RTTY in the last 10, maybe 15 years has gotten away from any kind of conversational stuff, and it's gone almost purely to contesting and the DX world. And many DX expeditions are no longer even taking RTTY. They're using FT8, which I also do lots of. It's easier to do FT8, it's faster and all those things to, to do that as a D expedition. And quite frankly, it travels further, it's easier to get to. And many of the old time RTTY people are very unhappy about this, but this is where we've landed. So even today I was on 20 meters looking, trying to find a station so I could get some screenshots of some real stuff. And there was nobody there until somebody over in Europe finally came on and was testing for the contest coming up this weekend. So it's purely contest now is the way I would put it, the odd time DXing if you really are interested. There's over 30 contests in a year, so there's lots to go on. My recommendation for new people is literally pick one of the ones that's not the big ones and give them a try. That way you can practice more relaxed rate. People aren't quite as insistent, or try it on a contest like this coming weekend on Sunday when everybody's desperate for anybody. So that's a quick update and just general. So MMTTY, download it at the Hamsoft page. I highly recommend Don AA5AU, big RTTY guy for over 20 years or longer. He's got so many web pages and instructions and what that this is where I think you should go if you have a problem setting it up, something it gets goofy, something like that. My strongest recommendation is to go to his website. Okay. Also, please use the MMTTY help. So when you download it, there's the help button that most people ignore. This is loaded with really good information, technical information. Then it explains the buttons and why things happen. The number of people that have asked me questions, oh, well, I'm doing this. And I go, yeah, but why didn't you push that button that takes you back to do this, which is standard? And they go, oh, but then they have another button push that doesn't do these things. So this is really important to take a look at it. And I'm going to go through some of these simple things that make running a contest. So please read the help file. Okay, this is Don's page. You can see here really quickly, he's got just about everything you need. So I recommend set up MMTTY. If you're having problems, get it running first and then connect it into N1MM logger. It just works better because you're probably going to use the same configuration that doesn't work in MMTTY. In N1N, you're going to have to fix it there. So this way you can do that. And I think, was it Ken said he needed somebody to listen for him? You can email me and we can get on the air sometime and try it before the contest if you want. So, okay. So N1MM Plus and the digital interface. Our own, the E3KI, Rich, has spent many hours with others writing these help pages. There's a lot of information. You can go through and scan it. I really recommend, because this tells you how to set stuff up. I'm going to run through very quickly, but this goes in tremendous detail. Sometimes you actually get you don't want to read it too much and you start falling apart and you miss a step. So the first step is in N1MM Plus, start a new contest like we always do, go to CQ WW RTTY or pick any digital contest. to do this setup. If you don't pick a digital contest, the digital window will not open by default. So you have to pick one of those contests. Okay, so we all know how that works. So we go in and set it up. If you go over to the associate files, which I think most people do, these are the default files here that N1MM Plus gives you. So you can change these, but if you just default all these ones, they've got standard, then you can use their standard function to get started right away. So that's kind of handy. I just about always have got my own custom set per contest, particularly for the unusual contests, like some of the brag RTTY contests where there's a time component, worked all Europe when they're, doing QTCs. There's all kinds of extra stuff that you might want to try to do. So anyways, and you can change them and store them here, but you can download their set and have an instantaneous set of messages to go. So those are standard messages. There's a whole other set of messages up to, I think there's 24 or 32. I forget the button on that. So you can have all kinds of additional messages that you can use during a contest to quickly send something that you want to do. So, okay, so configuring N1MM, it's really simple. I'm going to assume that everybody's already set up for sideband CW or possibly RTTY. So you go in here, set up all your, COM ports, whatnot. You have to go over to the digital modes tab. And what you do is you have to select the MMTTY instance here, and you go to where the exec file is, and you load that exec file. That also loads the configuration of MMTTY that you set up previously. If you're still not quite there, there is a way you can do that. I'll show you that step in a few minutes. So anyways, select this. Now N1MM now knows where to go find MMTTY. So that's very important to do. The next thing you want to do, which also is pretty important, mode control. I've actually answered this question a couple of times because I learned about it a long time ago. In the digital world, it's really handy if you select in the RTTY the radio mode that you're in. And you notice I've got two radios here, so you wouldn't see that if you don't go into two radio mode. My radio has an RTTY mode that I use in that, even though I'm using AFSK on the radio. So this is important because what happens when you change bands on N1MM, it'll change to whatever you tell it to here. So if you've got this to something else, like say CW, and you change bands from 20 to 40, it will change the radio's mode to CW because you don't have it set properly here. So this is radio dependent. So it's really important to figure this out. So if you're changing bands on N1M and it changes somewhere else, you need to make sure that this has been set properly in N1M. This is kind of important because it will start messing you up. And often what happens is on the work bands, I've got a profile set up and I've got them all digital, and this will change it to RTTY and things like that. So it's important to figure these things out right away. Okay, so that's the setup. N1MM now knows where to go get it. You have to go open the digital interface. So go to the Windows, click on digital interface, and you get this nice little window pop up. So this is the N1MM window. This is the N1MM. There's too many letters here. So, our favorite contesting software. And to actually make it function, you have to click on interface and select MMTTY. And as soon as you do that, if you've never done this before, you'll get the MMTTY engine. So now what this is doing is it's forgetting all that other stuff that you saw on the MMTTY main screen and just using the engine component of it. And I think that the world just about exclusively uses MMTTY in most software products. So RightLug does, N1MM. I know the DX Lab suite does. I think there's a few others I know that use the engine, and then they build interfaces like you see here that work with this engine. So, and I'll talk about how we can get multiple decoders in a few minutes. Okay, so we now have N1MM running in the digital window with RTTY. So here's what you need to know about how the MMTTY engine functions with N1MM. So let me just, okay. So I'm just going to go through the menu paths very quickly. So you do not need to have this window open when you're running N1MM. You can stick it over on the side. You can do whatever you want, actually, because you don't really need it. However, if you want to use any of these features because you don't have them set up in other areas, you may want to have this handy so you can take a look at it. Some people still like to use the screen, right, as opposed to, so it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So again, this is something you need to try and figure out where you want to put all these screens based on your operating style. And it really comes down to where you're looking at most. So you absolutely want to have the the log entry screen. That's really important. I then put my the digital windows above that, so I can automatically just clicking, or I'm using keystrokes to pull in the call signs. So on here we have the view menu, and it just gives you these two displays here. So the FFT window is this guy, and you'll see that the mark, sorry, there weren't people on when I was doing screenshots to actually show you. I have some later. So the mark frequency sits right here, and then the shift frequency is right here based on standard settings. And you can adjust this if you want. And that's where you see the RTTY signal, and you can tune in and tune out against it. Again, this one is the XY scope. So it's just a cross like this. And again, I got a screenshot that actually shows it from the guy I was listening to today. And that's another way of tuning it. So it depends on what you like, but here are two visual ways that you can see how the signal is, when you're tuning around in search and pounce mode. Okay, so if you made an error or want to change the settings within MMTTY, this is the option where you can actually go into the engine and then save a configuration file for your set here. Now, most people, what they do is they have a complete version of MMTTY sitting in some standard directory, and they've got everything there. So then what they do is they copy another directory into, say, N1MM plus, and go down and you say MMTTY, and you load the engine in there. So you literally just copy the engine over, and it will bring the configuration over when the first time you run it. And that is your own set for N1MM plus. Then you can run MMTTY, with all the other stuff wherever you want, should you choose to. I actually have 4 separate directories of MMTTY because I run different instances across my SO2R station. So I'll explain how that works and why you might want to do this, because it's easier. So I don't know how many people use profiles, but when I talk about profiles, this is a standard function with MMTTY, and I know most people don't actually use anything other than the standard one. So here's what these guys do, and this is very helpful, and this is the kind of stuff that's going to make you you'll actually be able to copy somebody better. So the standard one is standard, so it's the one that comes, and that's the one you always want to default back to. So the ham button down here I'm going to talk about, that always takes you back to the ham the standard mark frequency. So these guys, you can modify them or just use them as they are. So again, I told you how noise bursts, Doppler, you get whatever's happening to the band's noise. This can affect how the signal works. So these different profiles of the decoder are designed to cancel out or change or improve, the performance. And like there's a multi-path one. So because you actually hear that shift sometime on long path, this will compensate and give you a better copy sometimes if you're listening in both directions, or choose to go long path. A number of people have built some of these profiles, and they're all over the internet. They're free. So AA6YQ is the guy that is the owner, writer, Superman of the DX Lab suite of products. This guy's amazing. He gives all his stuff free. I use just about every component he's got for my FT8 stuff, and his software is really, really good. It's not contesting software, but it is software that does just about everything else on the planet. He wrote this one, and it is a super fine, filtered profile. And I strongly suggest you use this if you're a guy's weak and you need to listen to them. And these profiles, again, they're standard on it. You can just go and load them into here. If you take this menu path here that we've got, save to files, load from file. So they're all over the internet. I know, trying to think, there's 2 or 3 other programmers that have written, and they've taken the standard functionality somewhere of one of these things and they've tweaked it. And the tweaking of this works on some of the screens that I'm not going to show you that sit in the main configuration of MMTTY. So I strongly suggest you try these. These are really, really good. I actually run one extra MMTTY depending on what I'm doing if conditions are horrible or something like that, because I'll pick one of these and actually have it in another decoder screen so that you're constantly looking at the differences here, so you don't have to change this because you can change it on by just going in and doing it. But if you have another decoder in the multiple decoder windows, you're then just have it there running all the time. So this is super helpful. I strongly recommend people get into this and try them. It's fun. And again, especially for DXing, or there's a multiplier somewhere down, and you see them and you can barely hear them. The AA6YQ filter is really sharp and it's really good to zero in and then helps drive some performance. Let's see. So one thing I didn't mention, I was going to show that and I forgot about it. So ICOM on their radio series has the twin peak filter. What that does is they stuff a notch in between the mark and space frequency, and then they enhance the receive portion of the mark and space. And what that does is it gets you better receiving. However, it becomes very narrow, so sometimes you can miss things. But it's another way. You can click in one of the setup screens on MMTTY to run the twin peak filter all the time. So it's another function you might want to give a try. I use it. I have better antennas now, but they're still not great. You can actually run using a twin peak filter in a crowded space because it just gets rid of everybody, but you also lose the chance of actually hearing somebody that's off frequency. So pluses and minuses, but it's something worth trying. Okay, so I'm watching the time here, Tony, too.
Oh, you got plenty of time.
So, yep. So, okay, decoder types. So if you take a look at I didn't draw arrows because there's like 10 of them here, right? So if you take a look at the type button right here, there are 3 built-in different decoder types within the one demodulator. Sorry, it's a demodulator, not the decoder. Sorry, I got that wrong there. Anyways, the standard one is this infinite impulse response, which means it's not clipping or changing. It's the standard one. So, and you can see it right up at the top here, how it's selected. So that's the standard. If you hit this button, it's going to go through the finite, and these other 2. These are all very specifically built around processing of noise and filtering of things, and trying to assist in bad situations like like car ignition or something. It's going to try to stop some of this stuff in those. So if you're having problems listening to somebody and you just can't get the copy, if you hit the type button, this is really fast. You have to wait through a cycle, but you'll actually can find that you'll get better reception. Like you'll all of a sudden start to hear somebody. So, and this again is only on the MMTTY decoder screens, because I'm going to show you how to do two-tone and others later. So that's really important to give that one a try. Reverse, well, if you hear somebody you can't copy and you hear them there, he may be sending reverse. So don't do it because it confuses most people and they'll ignore you. But the reverse button will actually flip mark and space around so that you can try to listen for that. The ham button is probably the most critical one that you need to know about. So it sets the mark to 2125. And if you're running automatic frequency control like I've got here, you notice that the frequency has gone to 2121. What's happening is MMTTY is shifting back and forth, trying to find the strongest signal so they can decode, what they're listening to. And this can move out a lot, depending on how a signal moves. And if you don't put it back on ham, now sort of the ham split, which is our stuff, if you don't do that, then you're now transmitting in a different, and you're listening in a different zone. So the person on the other end is not going to be able to hear you necessarily. So this is really important to watch how this works. And I'm going to talk about the automatic frequency control in a minute, because there's some really good features why you do use this, and some hidden stuff that you can, take advantage of the power of this tool. These two guys, I just don't use them. They're built, people use them in specialty profiles, and they go in and they do things with some of these keys and some of the taps and all kinds of stuff that, quite frankly, that's a programmer's kind of area. The notch filter right here, if you click on that, it'll park a notch wherever you click on it, and that will actually, so if you got a spike of noise or somebody, you can actually notch them out right here. So it's the same function as if you have a notch filter, on any of the radios, and you click it off and the notch disappears. They're pretty effective. I don't use them here too often. I use them on my Flex. I find it faster on the Flex. I don't use them too often, just because they get stuck on and whatnot, but they give you a little red dot right here, so you know it's there. The squelch button, this is kind of a cool thing. I suggest people use it. So you turn the squelch on, and you'll get this green line. So you can click anywhere here on the green line, and that will, or sorry, green box, but it will give you this black line. This is where the noise below that will not print on the screen, on the decoder screen. So if you got a lot of static or noise, or you're listening for somebody, and they're going to be a decent signal strength, if you put this on, that all of a sudden no audio, like you don't hear any of this stuff in the shack, rumbling around. So it's a really good feature. I use it all the time. You just have to be careful of where you select the squelch, because it turns off. And you don't hear anything, and you won't decode anything unless it goes above. This green box goes back and forth. It'll give you an indication of how the band is working and the noise level. So bandpass filter, I'd suggest you give it a try. It works. I have so much bandpass filtering stuff in my Flex and all the other stuff now. I don't use this too much, but it's just another bandpass filter. It's a software bandpass filter at the decoder level. Give it a try. You can turn it off and on depending on how things are going. It's just another thing you can give a try. Okay, the automatic frequency control. So that's this guy right here. And this is a really important feature. So if you're the running station, use it, because what happens is then, a signal comes in and it's going back and forth in between the mark and space, and it looks for the strongest signal, and then it locks in when it gets that, and you get a better decode. And I'll show you a way, though, you turn that off so you're back to listening at your frequency, your run frequency. So that's in the setup window. This is really, really handy. However, if you're a run station that's getting clobbered with tons of stuff, turn it off, because you don't want this. You want to be holding one frequency, work all those guys that are on your frequency as fast as you can to get them out of the way, and then you can turn it back on depending upon how the pileup happens towards you. So it's one of those things you got to play with as the run station to see what it is, but it allows you to move back and forth. Do not use it on search and pounce, because you want to listen to where the station is at all times. So he's not going to move unless he's got his AFC going as well. But he's likely not to be moving. So if you start to move around, or you're not locked in on his frequency, you're going to be transmitting not on his. So it's all this. It is so as a search and pounce station, it's best to tune the station in as best you can, and that's where you call the person. If you start trying to do, like, I know a lot of CW operators will transmit down and whatnot. Don't do that on RTTY. It doesn't really work, because the run station is going to be getting the strongest that the decoder decodes, and it's usually on his frequency, unless he's telling you up, up, up or something like that, which is rare in contests. So this is a really important feature to use. And I'll show you in the setup where you can make sure, as a run station, which is run on N1MM, sit there every time. If it's going back and forth, when you log something, it goes back to the ham frequency automatically, so that it's constantly, being reset, and as a run station, you're not all over the place. So this is a really good thing to use. I don't use net and, the automatic tone, all these things. Again, read the help manual. See if you want to try them. I recommend you don't unless they're built into a profile, because it's just one more thing that's changing standard settings that may actually hurt you if you don't understand them and have them built into something like a profile. Okay, so I got next. Messages. Okay, so I'm trying to get into how you can improve, sending messages and doing these things to make faster contacts. So the one, messages, we showed it on the one screen, but you can go on and take a look at this on the N1M help page. They got all of them there, right? And just about everybody that writes big RTTY pages has their own version, of the standard messages. So download it, use it. I've noticed that most of the ones in the N1MM now have, they didn't a few years ago, a space. Oh, sorry, let me go back. You must, in your messages, turn the transmitter on, and you must turn it off. So this has to be in your message. So I've got a message down here. So if you're familiar with the N1MM messages, this is the notes field, the F1SCQ. So turn the transmitter on, put a space, and then your message, leave a space, and shut the transmitter off. This is really, really important. I'll show you on a screen of the digital interface, but what happens is if you don't put that space in, depending upon the timing sequence of, somebody's amplifier and receiver and all these things, that first character can often be clobbered and you never see it. So you get something really strange. And it's really bad on calls that start with numbers, because that is a character set that gets destroyed in this first blast here. So it's really, really important to leave this space. I can't tell you enough, because, and I'll show you why when I get to the next screen. Like I say, I noticed that in the N1M messages, they put spaces everywhere, which is a really good thing. So I would say mandatory. If not, you're going to have problems, or you're going to create problems. So moving on. This is a full set that I got off of the N1MM site. This comes in the automatic download. So you can go down here and right here. So space. So he's got a clear it instruction, and there's more over here. The space, right? So this enter guy here, that means enter, you're going to get a line feed. So some people like to do this. So what they think, what happens is, if I start to send a message to somebody, what it does is it goes line feed, and on the receiving station, they'll receive a line feed command and it'll go down a line, right? So you can play with this. I don't like to do that. I find sometimes what happens is you get line feed, line feed, line feed, and then the receiving station is trying to figure out where the heck you are when he's trying to click on a call or find where you are. So it's up to you. Give it a try. But you'll notice they've got enter, and there's a space and a space, and even a space here. That's the his call. So here and here there's a space, and this is again really important to get the information transmitted accurately and efficiently, and not being clobbered by noise, or even another station that's stronger than you or even equal will compete with your your transmission. So enough said on that. That's something that I really try to stress to people. Okay, so the messages on the digital window. So these are another message set over and above the standard ones that use on the F keys that are used for ESM. ESM, yeah. Okay, so let me just go down here. So if you click on settings, you get this screen, and so there's general settings and there's messages. So I'm going to talk about the general stuff first here. So the grab window and these things, you got to read this stuff to understand how the grab window works and practice with it, because it's very useful, but it can be very confusing. So this is other stuff. But right here, See, I use the band map one too. So you can add a call sign to a band. There's all kinds of rules here that can help you if you want to. But this is the two I wanted to highlight. MMTTY send ham default on run to search and pounce change. So I'm a running station. I've got the automatic frequency control and it's going back and forth and whatnot. Works great. Then I say, okay, I'm done here. I need to start searching and pouncing. When I click the search and pounce button on the entry window, it does this for you automatically. And this is super helpful because then you don't have to think about changing it. So I say it's almost mandatory to do this. MMTTY, don't worry about Minerva. Turn AFC on off on runs change. This is the same kind of process. So it changes back to your ham frequency and it turns off the AFC. So I would say you have to click these two just to not be wandering all over the place and getting frustrated. So that's a really good one. There's other stuff down here. So again, read the help manual, and figure out and try these one at a time as you start finding something's better. I have this one on down here. MMTTY is always on top. You can move it wherever you want. So this is just one thing that you can do. Okay, so the messages. So this is the good stuff. So Tony, coffee, QTCs. So these are extra messages. I've got 16 on here. I think it's 32. I forget because I didn't do the drop down on the window. These are additional messages that you can send. And these are super helpful when you get outside. Somebody's calling you and they send you something and, you're going call again, something like that. And you want to send them something else. You can pre-program these ones and they're very useful for, worked all Europe QTCs. It can be like, do you want QTCs? I have no QTCs. When we're working North American QSO parties with name, you can have your name in here. And all you have to do on these things is the message. You hit it once, you hit it twice, it'll send it just like that. And it's exactly the same way as you setting up the other messages. You got to start with a TX and you got to start with an RX. And you can save these in different sets as well. So there's multiple sets you can do. So this is really handy. And let me just, if I go to this screen, you'll see these extra messages down here. So you notice I had Tony, I was going to say, working Tony, I say, Tony, you owe me coffee. Or I can send quick messages like this without having to think about it and use the, the Alt-K send it manually kind of thing, right? So, but these things, so the brag sprint contest and these where they have a time component, you don't necessarily want to change everything on your F1 keys. So this is where you can do the other stuff. When you download the help files or the messages files, they'll have these pre-in, but if you need to do something else, send me the time again. You can do what you want here. So it's really, really handy. The grab window, I am not going to talk about. I think you need to experiment with that because it grabs call signs and starts filling this register up, and then you can just keep running and it fills things. But there are rules around it. You got to make sure you understand. At the bottom of the window here, you can clear the receive screen, turn the transmitter on, and in this blue box down or gray, you can actually type full long messages, but you go TX, then you got to turn it off. You also have the option, there's your ham button as well. So if you do hide the MMTTY screen, which a lot of us do, there's your ham button, automatic frequency control, and you can check for reverse. So there's all kinds of little things here to speed you up and minimize the stuff you're looking at on screen because trust me, you get crazy after a little while. So, okay, multiple decoders. I'm watching the time. Multiple decoders. This is really cool. I would suggest you try this once you sort of get a hang of everything. This will ultimately improve your score a lot, is the only thing I can say. Most people I know run two. They run MMTTY and two-tone just because MMTTY, worldwide standard, people have been using. Two-tone was written by G3 somebody in, I forget his call now, in England, and he's got auto correction and other things on it that's more PSK-like, so you can actually get better call correction. So sometimes I find it's better, and sometimes I find MMTTY is better. So having the two running at the same time And they're all highlighted as well. So when you get it highlighted, you can use a keyboard key to just take the call, right? So there's all kinds of these tricks that are, all within the, the keystroke help manual. Sorry, I keep harping on the help manual. Okay, so let me show you the multiple windows. And I'm sorry, I am going really fast. If we have questions at the end, that's no problem. So here's what 4 decoders looks like on your screen. I just did this today because I don't normally do 4. So what I have here is the main screen at the bottom. So this is MMTTY and where you transmit from. So you will see your receive and your transmit messages here in a row. You get full highlighting, and I see my call there. So I sent it, it highlights it. And these are color coded based on the color codes from N1MM, so this is a new double multiplier. This is a single multiplier. This is somebody you work. This is a dupe. So they give you full color coding here so you can see it, which is really nice. So this guy here, and he was visiting. He kept changing this, the CT9 call. But anyways, you can see how sometimes this came out VT9. That's just an error in the decoding. So there's a little bit of a noise burst, but because it was a letter, it said, yeah, V, but now, and it got the T, right? So if there's numbers in that, sometimes that's where they get mixed up. But I mean, so you can see how it keeps decoding. So each of these decoders is looking at different things. So I'll go right to the top here. This is two-tone. And the reason I like two-tone is it will come back and it decoded this CT9/IC8 station, and he kept changing his call. He has got IC8X or something like that. So he was trying, obviously, his setup coming for the weekend. So he kept changing things, which was interesting to watch him. It'll come up here, and in brackets, two-tone has said, yeah, I really think it's this call, but sometimes that call is different than this one because it's using that back correction. So it's taking a look at code as it's moving along and saying, hang on a second, that doesn't make sense to have, like this guy down here, doesn't make sense to be a VT, right? Because I've already decoded him twice. So in two-tone, you get this auto correction. And this is why you really should try the second decoder. It is very valuable because it gives you these options that you can see very, very quickly. So anyways, I loaded up, moving on, I loaded up Grinty. That's this one here. I don't like Grinty. I've never found it to be successful. I've tried it a number of times. And honestly, you give it a try if you want. I just don't find it valuable. And trust me, when you're looking at an SO2R setup, you've got 2 of these. So now you're looking at 4 different decode screens. It becomes a bit of a nightmare. So give it a try. Somebody, it may work for you. And then this third, so you can tell. So I'm on my second radio, which is 2. I'm on the first additional, the 2-1. I'm on the first additional decoder, receive only, 2-2, 2-3. This third one down here is another instance of MMTTY running a different profile. So I'm not sure what one I selected here, but you can preset these, or you can actually go in and find them on one of the screens. So this is another way of using MMTTY profiles. It's very useful. This is the kind of thing if you're like doing, say, DX, you could put these guys up listening for a weak DX station, and you're taking the best, the best 4 shots at decoding the guy. And as soon as you see him on one screen, that's pretty much confirmed. You can start transmitting, and hit one of the, the F keys, and you can carry on a conversation all of a sudden, or get the, work the contact. So this is really helpful, but of course, how much screen space and eyeballs, and this is what I call the 2 in the morning philosophy. 2 in the morning when your eyes are going red or something, can you look at all this information? What I do to offset that is I increase the font size. I have age appropriate font size everywhere. I'm running 2 33-inch monitors and another 30-inch monitor, and I just blow everything up so that you can easily see it. And you stack these things in a functional way that makes sense how you operate in the contest. And I have my radio A on the left and my radio B on the right, and they're all lined up exactly equal, so that it's just you're moving your head a very minimal amount, or just your eyeballs. So anyways, pick these multiple decoders. This is a really great way to increase your score, only because you can jump on the queue because you hear the guy faster, you get a better decode. Okay, just want to think if I was going to say anything else. Okay, some real quick tips that I do. I know people look at me kind of funny, but running SO2R, I have one radio off, no audio, and I have one so low because I'm looking at the visual. So if you can't see a decode, who cares if you see see the signal bouncing up and down? I mean, you may want to if you're looking for somebody, but so typically speaking, the run station I have off. Okay, and the search and pounce because I'm tuning and moving up and down, and that's just my style. And if you've gonna work a 48-hour contest with MMTTY screaming in your head, when you finish Sunday night at 7 or 8, depending on time, your head rings for a day or two. I found that a long time ago. So this is my technique. You choose. I know some of the CW guys I've talked to, they go, oh, I gotta hear it. Well, you don't because it's on screen. But again, it's a personal choice. You do get a hint that something there. But my experience is it really doesn't matter if you're looking at the decode screen. So anyways, up to you. One of the other things that's a trick that I really suggest you think about. So what happens, a noise burst comes in and the fig character that's being sent that then goes to VE3 doesn't come out or something like that. Or the noise burst after, my call VE3JI, now there's a noise burst there. All of a sudden, all I get is, and you'll see it, TOOR. So what's happened is the figures shift key that goes to numbers on the old 5-botto keypad disappears. So it just keeps decoding as T00R. If you take a look at your keypad, you take a look at, I hope I got it right here. So 5, if you take a look, immediately below it is the T, and the 9 right is O, right? And then R. So that's comes out. It's actually, so you can see this, okay, and you don't have to say repeat, repeat, repeat. You know that you've got that report, and then you can type it in, on the log entry screen. So you can again speed up your communication because this is what's going to happen. And this is a trick I've been using for years, and it's actually really bad. I can actually hear my call sign in RTTY and know it's me. I know all kinds of different, just because I've heard so many of them. Even that's, I'm like I say, I'm turning this stuff off. So, okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So really the whole idea, RTTY, it's just another thing to do. It's another thing to try, have some fun at, learn some new stuff. I just suggest get on the air, make a few contacts, practice and practice. If you get the bug and want to do this, it's great. Some of these tricks and tips will help you make a better score and have fun. If you just want to dabble, pick the one of the 24-hour or 30-hour contests in RTTY and get on and play around. In general, I find the big ones, CQ and the AWL, those ones, and even they get really intense and people are going like crazy. But if you get on Sunday afternoon on 20 meters and you listen to Europe, they're dying for calls. So this gives you a chance to practice as a run station. And you'd be surprised just how many of these big stations, they see you, somebody spots you, and guess what? I mean, you got a small pile up and you get to practice. And, that's my suggestion. The other thing is, how you can improve your score is go SO2R. And I think everyone knows that. It's just a huge advantage by running a second radio, even only part-time like what I do. So Tony, I 8 o'clock. So I think I'll take questions. I don't mind to hang around for a while.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks very much, Ian. I'm sure you're going to get inundated with questions.
I think I gave people too much.
No.
Okay, Ian, I've got a question.
Yep.
Okay, I was following you with my RTTY setup running here, and so I think I'm set up for the contest this weekend, but in my message, it's not sending 599 as part of my transmit message. Which when I look at the contest
Oh, hang on a
exchange says it's supposed to be there.
Say,
So I'm in N1MM and my search and pounce exchange is coming across as here it goes. 04 Ontario 04 Ontario VE3 HG. But there's no 599 in that message. And the contest rules say should be 599. Am I missing something here? Or do I
so first of all, don't put 04, just go 4.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's, I mean, you know, some people do it.
That's
zeros
good.
don't count anymore, right? So, you know,
Yeah.
you have a slight advantage. So I would say, you know, 5994 for Ontario, actually, I think this is what the exchange is.
Yeah. So do I have to manually put the 599 into my message? Because I thought
I'm gonna try and find the message screen.
Yeah.
I have to like how do I do messages? Oh, there we go. Okay, so if you take a look, it depends on how the message is set up, but if you look at the F1 here, so you turn it on, you know, you're calling. Oh, sorry, you wanted to do the
I do search and pounce.
yeah, okay, so I'm down here. I mean, so you know, these my call, so see the sent RST. If you don't have that when you do the contest setup, so when you go to, oh, I'm not sure I can find it. Anyways, you know, the screen that says, you know, I'm going to pick CQ Worldwide, you know, and that, if you don't put 599 down there or standard, it won't know. So it'll just send a blank.
So it's in my new log setup.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. That I've been having to manually put this in for years.
Yeah, and see this sent RST, that's what picks that up from that piece of N1MM, but you could just put 599 here. Like you don't have to do that.
That's what I've been doing. I've been doing it manually. I'm just trying to find now, where do I put 59? Where's it click in the, I'm in the select contest type for new log.
I got to remember where I am.
Where are you?
I'll do it. You know, so Peter, other people can ask questions. Send me an email and I'll send you a screenshot tomorrow. Okay, it's in that setup. But you can, there's a standard setup, like a standard message exchange. Unless I'm looking at the screen, I forget what it looks like. But yeah, just pop me an email. You've got my in. We can chat or phone me.
No problem. I probably will be able to find it now that I know I'm looking for something. So I think I should be fine. Thanks, Ian.
Yep, no problem.
Can I just make a quick comment here?
Sure.
First of all, Ian, thanks for the excellent presentation. There's a lot to digest here, and I'm not sure how many people on this Zoom meeting are beginners, and some people are already doing it. But I found that just getting started was the hardest part, and once you got going, then you could start to enhance how you operated. I went to the Northern California Contest Club website, and there's an excellent video there on how to get started. And that's what got me going. And then I could get into some of these other things. But sometimes just getting started is the hardest part.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that I recommend, you know, Don AA5AU. I've met him and I've talked to him 1,000 times on contests, but a few other times. And his stuff outlines all that stuff. He's got so many pages on it, but there's YouTube videos and you can find stuff everywhere. And I encourage people, that's what I do. If I get stuck on something, I go YouTube, right? So, but yeah, getting started because there's so many switches, you know, and tick boxes and, you know, am I using push to talk here for this? And am I using FSK? And, you know, there's all these things that you sort of got to decide, right? And it's radio dependent because each one's.
November Golf 7 Mike has a video that shows how to configure Elecraft for RTTY, and he takes you step by step. And sometimes people have to have their hand held just to get going.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, I've actually had a number of people that are regular content. We sort of have chit chats, and sometimes like I never knew that, and I go, oh, I just learned something, right? Because there's so much. So step by step, one step at a time is always the best. And again, get on the not the heavy traffic contests and just practice. And people won't get mad at you. They always want your contact, right? But
I have one question.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I see you choose in N1MM setup, you chose AFSK instead of FSK. So I was able to run always fine with AFSK, but I was never able to as FSK. So if you can cover what is the difference between?
Oh, sure. Okay. I used to run FSK all the time, and probably one of my screens was actually relating to my ICOM 7300 that I was writing this presentation at the cottage on the dock. So FSK is a keying circuit that keys it, in the radio, and it actually, changes in the radio. So it's hardware. AFSK is keying through the audio circuit of your sound card, and the sound card is generating the tones. Challenges with FSK is you got to get the keying circuit. Most radios do not have it, so you got to build one. AFSK is really simple. However, it can be an overdriving situation with your audio, so you got to be taking a look. So in your audio section, there's no compression. That'll just destroy your signal, make it sound really crappy and hard to decode for other stations. I always keep the drive level a little bit lower, like the audio drive level is below. So depending on what radio you have, but you can see this on your meters. AFSK is the most popular just because people can get on it and they don't have to get that hardware keying circuit for FSK.
Yeah, this is
Yep.
why it was working on my end, because
Yep.
I was using a audio card. But as I have a Kenwood 590 SG that has built in this feature, so I was hoping to make it running natively as FSK, but I was not able to find any manual or anything else. Maybe if you have any website or anything that I can search for how to set up.
Oops. Yeah, so Don, hang on, I got his page here. So first of all, in the MMTTY, it's kind of cryptic on how to do that, but it's there. If you go to AA58Us and pick on his, don't go to his duck hunting section and all that. He's a really nice guy. He's in Louisiana and he's had problems because of hurricanes down there. Anyway, if you go down here, see the transmitting RTTY discussion. There's an FSK one. There it is. There's the FSK one. It'll discuss how you move that on FSK. The thing you got to make sure, and I'm doing this from memory now. So when you're in the setup mode, when you go to the transmit tab, there is, you need a push to talk port change when you go to FSK, and you got to do that. Where you're in AFSK on that push to talk port, you have nothing because the radio does it through the process. So there's a couple of changes, but if you go to this, guys, I think you'll find where that clue is to change between the two modes. And it's all in MMTTY that you have to change it, but it has to be supported by the radio.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
How much power do you run for this typically?
Well, I was low power all the time up until a couple of years ago when I bought an amplifier. So I ran 100 watts full blast SO2R. I didn't care. I had two radios. I was doing that before I bought the amplifier. I found that I was running two ICOMs, and I found it wasn't a problem. My power supplies got really hot, but the radios never had a problem because the ICOM said their full duty cycle, which I don't believe, but I did it anyways. When I run on my amplifier, so I've got a full flex line, I run between 700 and 800 watts.
Wow.
Typically when I run, well, I'm in the high power class when I do that. The advantage of running high power on RTTY is that's your advantage to get your signal out, because you are trying to decode the stream, and if you get broken up on low power, you just don't do it. The difference between low power at my home is low power. I can't keep a run frequency to Europe on Saturday, sometimes Sunday on low power. With high power, I can keep a run frequency on 20 meters until someone pushes me out, basically, because it's not that big. So the power is a big thing on RTTY. Even a few hundred watts up, of course, the double power thing. So it's your choice on your category. I only started high power, in the last 3 years. I was always low power, except at contest stations where I go.
Okay, thanks.
So Ian, you said between 700 and 750 watts, right?
Oh, I said 750. Correct, Ken. Thank you. Did I say I probably actually, it's more like 650, Ken.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me.
Actually, that's a good point because not very many people know that you can't go above 750 on digital modes.
That's correct. That's correct. So
Even some East Coast expeditions didn't know that. So
really, okay, yeah. Well, that's in the Canadian regulations, right? So, and we all know going from 750 to 1500 isn't that much, right?
that's correct.
Right, Ken? Say it. You're supposed to say it.
PDB, big deal.
Okay. Sorry.
There's always
Anybody else questions or?
always the NAQQP, which limits you to 100 watts.
Well, that's a contest specific. You're absolutely right.
So
Is
Ian,
it possible- oh,
have you done any like QRP RTTYs or they have a category for that?
Many contests do. I think, it's the 5 watts and under kind of thing. So,
do.
given my suburban station, I never considered QRP, to be quite honest with you.
I do. I run QRP whenever conditions allow on RTTY. I have no issue whatsoever. Now I can't hold a frequency. I'm searching pouncing, but I can work on, if I'm really going well and I'm staying up and being a good boy, I can work a couple hundred stations very easily on QRP. It's not a problem.
Yep, no, QRP, everybody knows, it's the transmitted signal. If the other station can hear you, perfect. If they can't, that's the problem with a lower, power signal, right? And that's why I jumped into the program of trying high power.
And my experience running my two butternut verticals, the HF6 and the HF2, and now I'm going to put up a G5 RV for 20 meters, is if I can hear them, I can work them anywhere in the world. I can work out 10,000, 15,000 kilometers if I can hear them. I can break pileups into the Caribbean, but nowhere else. but if especially Sundays on a clear frequency, I can work anybody I can hear at 5 watts.
Yeah, and notice how Peter said on a Sunday of a contest.
Yes.
Okay, that's really important, Peter.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just poking at you. I've known Peter a long time.
Well, what happens too is I will follow when Ian's running, I will follow him up the band because I certainly can't compete with him. If I'm trying to call the same guy, they forever work JI first. And so I just wait until he finishes, then I go in, and generally I do all right following him up the band. It's one of my little secrets. So
yeah, he sends me $100 every contest to do that.
Okay, you recorded this. Is it possible for us to see that recording? You went through it pretty quick.
Yeah, no, I like I say, it's already quarter after, and you can tell how fast I went through it. I actually cut a bunch of stuff out.